Hello and welcome back to GMBN Tech. Today is an Ask show, so if you've been using the hashtag Ask GMBN Tech, you've got your questions up on YouTube and Instagram. We've been having a look through to look at some tech questions to answer today. Anna, I think you've got one about cranks.
I do. So Harkorma says, I currently have a bike with 175mm crank arms and I'm getting loads of pedal strikes and having issues with manuals. Would going to shorter cranks help out? I'm thinking of 165mm. Would 10mm really affect anything? Yeah, it kind of will. So the pedal strikes, having shorter cranks might actually help you with those pedal strikes. That is why Hope and the likes of 5Dev are putting out some really short cranks at the moment, even going down to 155 and saying that that is perfect for this sort of scenario. Yeah. Having shorter cranks will actually bring your feet in as well, which might square off your hips a little more. And that's said to be good for cornering and jumping as well. So it might actually help you out with your manuals. I think it's worth giving it a go. I've moved down to 165s and I absolutely love it. Granted, I am a little bit of a shorter rider. But they are a nicer feeling. Although I will say that 10mm might not be a big difference for your legs per se, but think about your pedal to saddle height will now change by 10mm because you're bringing that pedal up. So you might want to compensate by bringing your saddle up by 10mm as well. And you might want to think about the fact that your cranks have come in when they're in the 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock position too, which means that your pedal might not be directly under your knee anymore. So you might want to think about that fore and aft of the saddle rail as well. However, what I'll say is change the cranks, go for it, and ride a small amount first to see if it affects anything on your body, and then start to make some geometry changes or bike fit changes after that.
Next question is from Shredder Dave. He's saying, what width tyre is best for cross-country riding?
Ooh,
bit
big
difficult.
question.
I mean, it depends for best, right? But I mean, there's been a bit of a recent trend towards going wider in XC racing as the courses have become more technical, travel has gone up, and then it's given you ability to run slightly lower pressures, have a wider footprint on the trail, and not bottom out those like 1.9 to 2 inch width tyres that were super common for the lightweight. We were at World Cup earlier in the year looking at prototype tyres, and I was asking, what width are they? Are they 2.4? And it was sort of like, maybe, yeah, or a bit bigger. Could have measured them, but so that is a trend. However, sometimes you do have to think about the specific conditions. So I was at the British Champs last week. It was a bog. It was very muddy. So I ran 2.35 Barzos, which are a little bit wider than normal for me, but it meant I could drop the pressures a lot, not worry about hooking up and slamming my rims on the rocks. And it was good having that wide, but actually some other people who had some tyres, they'd say for 10 years, that were like a mud spike in a 1.9, so that kind of went massively the other way, and it cuts through the mud. If it's really soft, you get down to the harder stuff. And that was really good for traction, but then because of the narrower tyre, they had to bump the pressures up quite a lot to compensate on the rough. So it's advantages to both. I think it honestly is sort of what you've got available and then what you're used to riding. I'd run like a 2.25 probably as normal for like the biggest range of XC conditions, and then that allows me to get really into like that characteristic of tyre and learn how that rides. So I can't say what's best, but I think learning what you've got, consider the conditions you're going to ride most often, and for what you do have, then figuring out the tyre pressures that work best for you in combination with your suspension, and whether you maybe want an insert or not can be really good for cross-country tyres, because conversely to maybe like a downhill tyre where the sidewalls are tough enough without an insert, on XC, you get that flexibility from a nice light sidewall and a little bit of protection from an insert. So that's what I say to Shredder Dave.
Yeah, so it depends always, but also do check on what the clearance is for your frame. So a lot of XC frames have a maximum tyre width that you can run as well, because you don't want to be wearing into your chainstays, for example. No. So question 3, typical guy says, why do the officials blow a whistle after each downhill racer goes by? It's not the fans, it's during practice, I noticed. Yeah, the marshals will blow a whistle as soon as they see a rider rider on course, because this alerts all the fans further down the track who might be crossing the tape and walking around the course that there's a rider on track, and so they want to watch out and stay back behind the tape. It also lets another marshal know that a rider's coming down, and they'll effectively blow the whistles all the way down the track to alert everyone that someone's coming. So that's it, simple.
Yeah, nice and easy. Next one is from Gabriel. He's been having problems with his shifting. Only half the cassette shifts well. He's playing around with the barrel adjuster, and you can get the chain shifting nicely at one end of the cassette and then moving, say, to smaller cogs. Shifting doesn't work, he says. I've already changed cable and cable housing and shifter. I've encountered this myself. It normally means that something is bent, basically, either your rear mech or the hanger. Saying it's changed the shifter but not mentioned that, so I think that would be something to look at. You've got a video coming out about the correct use of a hanger alignment tool. Great piece of kit. So I would start with that because before thinking about replacing anything, it is so annoying. You get it dialed and then it just throws out and you can't get it fixed. Also, maybe thinking about the B-tension screw. I find if I have too much B-tension, so the sort of too much gap between the guide pulley, so the top jockey wheel, and the cassette, when it's down in the small sprockets, you have such a big distance between the guide pulley and the actual cogs, it just makes it a bit vague. So having that dialed in and having the correct derailleur for your sort of shape of cassette, if it's really wide range or tighter, because you need the derailleur to actually be able to track the cassette properly, basically, through the angle that it moves through, and give that nice tight shifting. So yeah, get your stuff straightened out, and that should help.
Or they could maybe just put a spare one in, see if it fixes it, and you'll know whether it's the
if you have
bent or
spares,
not.
always worth
Yeah.
trying.
Okay, question 5 from Matthias Hansen says, why are internal hub gears so uncommon? I know nothing about modern variants, but surely there must be a good, decently priced ones to mount on mountain bikes. Less maintenance and wear would be a nice upside to having one for sure. Yeah, I mean, there isn't many available. So we've got the classified system, which Neil did a video on recently, but that does need to work with an existing drivetrain as well. It's not just a system in itself. Effectively added almost like two variants, like a front derailleur almost.
Yeah, like doubles it, doesn't it?
Yeah, but in the hub. We've got roll-off, which has been around for a really long time, and people do swear by them, but sort of bear in mind that this needs to be built into a wheel, and you're looking at about £1,000 for that system. And there are some sort of, it can be about 1 kilo to 2 kilos in weight. So you've got to weigh up, literally the weight of a roll-off with the cost of it to a mechanical drivetrain that can be much, much lighter, just only hundreds of grams, and potentially hundreds of pounds rather than £1,000. And then, in terms of others, there just really isn't any on the market. You mentioned Alpine, but that's
more touring,
not really
isn't it?
Mountain bike specific. So I think availability is a really big issue. There isn't many on the market. There isn't many options. Weight, definitely. Price, definitely. I think that's a really leading point. And also culture. We're just so used to getting drivetrains. Manufacturers are so used to speccing drivetrains on their bikes as well, that it's kind of a culture thing that we stick with this standard sort of drivetrain, and also having that sort of ability to customize different parts of your drivetrain, I think, and replace parts, and having those parts readily available in bike shops also is a really big thing. So I think there's a lot of factors, but I do agree with you. It is a good system that I think some people should maybe start looking into developing.
Yeah, if you're set up with it already, then it works, but it's just getting
to that point is tough, yeah.
Final question for today is from Joshua Shepherd, who says, why does no one remember Boss suspension as much as they used to? Considering it wasn't long ago, and this was actually 2021, they released a 39mm stanchion Enduro fork.
I remember them.
Yeah,
I love them.
Anna's always going on about Boss.
No, I do think it's a big shame that they're not around so much anymore, because I really enjoyed. They used to come as standard on some YT models really early on. I had a Capra top pro level one with Boss suspension, and I thought it was amazing. It's super buttery. They were lovely stuff.
I've never used Boss, but I always keep an eye on them. I think it's this like slightly mysterious, amazing, interesting brands. They come out with some really interesting stuff just on mountain bike. From Olivier Bossard, they're based down in Toulouse, in southern France, where they actually manufacture all their forks. I think maybe why they haven't done better is they're just not prioritising mountain bike sales. You know, they've got their motorsport arm that's massive relative to mountain biking, really, for suspension, and we get caught up in that mountain bike, but cars are, you know, they've got a lot more suspension.
Yeah.
And then there have been, I think, some CS and service issues that have maybe tainted their brand a little bit. I think that would be fair to say.
Yeah, in the UK, we didn't have a UK distributor for Boss, so anytime anything went wrong, any warranty issues had to go back to France, and it was kind of a big ordeal, and people wouldn't be able to ride their bike in the meantime. So it did taint them in the UK, and I think losing OE, spec'd bikes, losing any of those contracts, does just bring them out of your mind, because it's not Fox RockShox. That's why we think of Fox and RockShox all the time. Obviously, they make quality products, but we just see them all the time on bikes, so they're at the forefront of our minds.
It's just a kind of circular process, really. Like, they're not there, so you don't think about them, so you can't buy them secondhand, so they're not there. And it's just how things go in the market sometimes, I think. Yeah,
and it's a struggle to buy them here in the UK. They're just literally not for sale. So I think, there's a lot of issues with it, and I don't think it's because the forks are bad. So it would be a shame to lose them. I feel like, I don't know why we don't see them anymore. It would be nice to see more of them. But anyway, thank you very much for your questions. And if you've got any burning questions now, don't forget to use hashtag Ask GMBN Tech down in the comments below, and we'll try and get back to you on a show like this. But thanks for watching.
Yeah, see you next time.